What's up, you guys? Welcome back into the show. It's Battle from Z93 and iHeartRadio's Battleground podcast. And today is a very special show for us because when you think about it growing up as a wrestling fan, there's always those people that you admire looking up to, and there's people that you have on your bucket list of guests. And I'm going to bring in my co-host right now, Eli. And I feel as if this is a guy that is a bucket list. This is, when you look at it, when it comes to this person's accolades, he's on the Mount Rushmore.
Yeah. I'm a 30-plus year fan. I'm a Dangerous Alliance, Paulie Dangerously, cell phone. Like, I go back to about 89, 88, 89-ish with him.
So let's just go ahead and bring him on. Our guest on the show, Paul Heyman, joins us. Paul, it is literally an honor to have you on the show today with us.
Well, they told me that if I did this, then you've completed your bucket list and you can just go away. So I figured, hey, you know what? Do Poughkeepsie a service and get it over with.
For sure. And real quick, before we jump into any wrestling talk, I was talking to my co-host Eli about this. A lot of people probably haven't seen the movie. I mean, it's 3% on Rotten Tomatoes. I got to say, I was a fan of Rollerball, and I think you made that movie.
Well, I thought Rollerball absolutely positively sucked, but I thought I was fantastic in it.
I mean, when you think about it, you're like remaking that old movie, but I think that you made the movie.
I agree with you. I thought I was better in this version, directed by John McTiernan, than James Caan was in the original version. And I accept your compliments because I know that they're sincere, and I know that they're sincere because I know how good I was in the movie.
Oh, you were fantastic in the movie. So, of course, this weekend, Madison Square Garden, Road to WrestleMania. By the way, you can still grab tickets, Ticketmaster.com. Let me ask you this, because, I mean, you've been around for a very long time in the wrestling business. How rewarding has it been to see the seeds planted in ECW bloom across the world? I mean, you had CZW, GCW, and several other promotions around the world.
I don't think you should limit them to CCW and everybody else. I think you should incorporate the Monday Night Wars and even modern day WWE and certainly AEW, which seems to follow the ECW format with a WCW budget, which is what their owner said was going to be their concept over a year ago. I think the extreme influence on this industry is exactly what we were shooting for back in the 1990s and into the new millennium. We were the disruptors in the industry. We were what was needed for the industry to propel itself into the billion-dollar global conglomerate that it is today. And we take full credit for it because we earned that credit because ECW was indeed the revolution and the evolution that the entire industry needed.
Yeah.
Hands down. Yeah, and it's got to be rewarding to, turn on any channel today and kind of see, what you guys started back then. So last year, obviously, as fans, we were excited. RVD got inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame. Besides yourself, obviously, who are some other, ECW alums that you feel are really essential inductees into the Hall of Fame?
I would say Sabu definitely belongs in the WWE Hall of Fame because I think the concepts that Sabu was introducing were 20 years ahead of its time. And I don't just mean the breaking of the tables. I mean just the manner in which he performed in the ring was so far ahead of its time that he never got the credit that he deserved. I would say Joey Styles was a very progressive announcer that no one understood just how valuable he was to the ECW brand, because here you had these criminals and these gangsters and these barroom brawlers and these misfits, and yet you also had these supreme elite exquisite technicians. Eddie Guerrero Dean Malenko, et cetera, Rey Mysterio Psychosis, Juventud Guerrera that came over from Japan or Mexico. I mean, we scoured the world for the greatest talent. And no American announcer had ever called the moves for what they were. Joey Styles did. Joey Styles ushered out the era of, wow, that looked great. Here's a replay, and started calling the moves by the names that were associated with the moves. And he was completely different than any other announcer because he did his job solo for so many years.
Absolutely.
So I would say Joey Styles, absolutely. There are a number of the characters and the personas that came alive in ECW that belong in any legitimate Hall of Fame. I think ECW itself belongs in the Hall of Fame.
Definitely.
I mean, we're okay. That just put the whole thing in there. But yeah, I mean, what you said about Sabu, you know, the presentation of his character was just incredible. I mean, from top to bottom, promos, costume, ring work. I mean, it was just, like you said, years ahead. Joey Styles, I mean, if you watch a modern wrestling program now, you pretty much owe a debt to him. I mean, like you said, I mean, bringing in to where they actually acknowledge the actual names of the moves. And I mean, I think there were so many like lightning and bottle situations for ECW. It's kind of hard to really fathom it at times, you know?
I can't dispute that. It was in the 1990s. It was an industry that was stuck in its own concepts and had not incorporated hip hop, had not incorporated heavy metal, had not incorporated what was then the biggest influence on American culture, on North American culture, which was the 1990s version of MTV. I mean, WWE did great in the mid 80s. I mean, the success of the first WrestleMania is directly attributable to WWE's association with MTV, Cyndi Lauper, the Rock and Wrestling Connection. But MTV went a completely different direction in the late 80s. And the pro wrestling sports entertainment industry had no idea how to tap into that culture, no idea what was going on, no idea what Nirvana or Soundgarden or even Guns N' Roses were doing back in the early 1990s, let alone NWA, Public. I mean, the first act that I debuted, the first act that I used as a creative force in ECW, which was September 1993, was a tag team called the Public Enemy. Obviously based on Public Enemy, the rap group. Also based on the James Cagney movie, which is a completely different story. But there was no hip-hop influence in this industry in the early 1990s. Onyx Slam, which was an anthem back in 1993, 1994, the first time Slam was played on television as a music video was not on MTV, was not even on BET, it was on ECW television. 3-6 Mafia never got a video on MTV before we debuted 3-6 Mafia's video on ECW television. Haru the Damager never got a video on BET or MTV before we debuted him on ECW television. MC Light, Roughneck, we called Mr. Hughes the Roughneck. MC Light's Roughneck debuted as a video on ECW 3 weeks before it debuted on MTV's Yo MTV Raps at like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, which I'm not knocking that time slot. That was ECW's time slot. But these were the cultural influences that ECW brought forth to this industry that everyone else then capitalized on, and smartly so. But just, ECW was the disruptor that the industry needed.
100%.
And I remember watching those ECW shows at 3 o'clock in the morning my dad got me introduced. Like he would record it on, what was it? TNM was when it was on. In
I still have some of my TNM
and
taped
I mean,
shows,
that was
yeah.
where I got introduced to everybody, and that was where I got God rest his soul, introduced to New Jack. And that at the time when I was watching ECW was one of my favorite wrestlers because he just had that I don't give a crap attitude,
Yeah, and as a white teenager in the South, you're like, "Yay, go New Jack!" I mean, it was so such a culture shock,
man. But let's kind of go back to the beginning a bit. Do you remember the first time someone talked to you about your current client Roman Reigns, and what was your first impression of him?
Well, the first time anybody mentioned the human being known as Roman Reigns to me, he was 3 years old, holding his father's hand. His father was WWE Hall of Famer Sika of the Wild Samoans, and I was the number 2 person in the creative in Alabama-based wrestling promotion at the time called Continental Wrestling Federation, and we ran Panama City. And Sika was in a tag team at the time with a young Samoan that he was breaking into the business, at the time known as Kokina, Ronnie Anawai, who later on became known as Yokozuna, who at the time was only about 325, 350 pounds and moved like a cruiserweight.
Oh, he was a pup.
And because of Panama City's proximity to Pensacola, where Sika lived, and still does, by the way. Shout out to Sika. Baddest dude you will ever meet in your life. And Sika brought with him to the show his 3-year-old son, who's now known as Roman Reigns. And he introduced me to his son. And what stood out about his son to me was that in a locker room filled with future WWE Hall of Famers, future WWE champions, future WWE main eventers, like I'll throw one name at you, Sid Justice, Sid Vicious, who was in that locker room. A locker room filled with people like that, filled with people like Yokozuna. Roman Reigns had more charisma at 3 years old than everybody in that locker room combined.
Jeez.
All the oxygen in the room went straight to him. He's 3 years old. He's holding his father's hands. And yet, when he just made a motion like he wanted something to eat or whatever it was, everybody in the room turned their head and noticed him. It was the damnedest thing. He had a charisma at 3 that could not be denied. And I said to Sika, respectfully, because everyone who spoke to Sika spoke respectfully to Sika, and still does to this day, and rightfully so. I said, I signed him today, and Sika said, "It's okay, brother. You'll get him in the future. He's gonna be all yours." You just knew. You just knew this was this 3-year-old was going to grow into being a star. He just had it. He had the it factor. He at 3 years old. When he walked back to his father across the locker room, he had swag in his step. He had a confidence at 3 years old that 30-year-old men in that locker room in their physical prime did not have that same swagger.
Man.
So this has been kind of prophecy. It sounds like. I mean, that's just incredible.
The Samoans sent out into the world the prodigal son. I mean, the Roman Reigns was born to be the tribal chief. This is exactly where he was destined to be from day one.
Well, speaking of that, we're heading into WrestleMania. Just got back from the Royal Rumble. We're right around the corner from it. Mania this year in Dallas will once again be headlined by Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar.
I disagree with that sentence, by the way.
Okay.
Demon.
Okay. Thank you for the correction. Thank you. Why do you think this matchup continues to capture the imagination of wrestling fans around the world? I mean, this isn't the first match between them, obviously.
See, and that's the part of it that I disagree with. I think this is the first time you're seeing at WrestleMania the Beast Brock Lesnar against the Tribal Chief.
Okay.
There's nobody to jump in to make it a three-way dance either.
Not if they want to survive till the next day. There's not. No, it's Brock Lesnar versus Roman Reigns, a 2-time WrestleMania main event presentation. Very interesting match. But that's Brock Lesnar, former NCAA Division I heavyweight champion, former UFC heavyweight champion, knocking out the greatest UFC heavyweight champion of all time, Randy Couture, and already having defeated Hulk Hogan, The Rock, Ric Flair, and every other legend that had ever stepped into the ring with Brock Lesnar. And he's against a Roman Reigns who's main eventing WrestleMania as he is still perfecting his craft. This is the first time you've ever seen at WrestleMania that same Brock Lesnar, still dominant, still the beast that conquered the Undertaker's undefeated streak at WrestleMania, still on top of his game, completely wiped out the heavyweight division on Monday Night Raw to regain the WWE Heavyweight Championship. But it's the first time that Brock Lesnar has ever stepped into the ring with the Tribal Chief, Roman Reigns. And I would dare suggest that the Tribal Chief is head and shoulders above the big dog Roman Reigns. The big dog Roman Reigns was a perennial WrestleMania main eventer. The Tribal Chief Roman Reigns is the GOAT, the greatest of all time, undisputed, uncontroverted, the best that has ever done this, the greatest that has ever been.
For sure.
It's incredible.
And here's the thing is like we're kind of already jumping the gun a little bit, saying that it's going to be Brock Lesnar, Roman Reigns, title versus title, but Brock has his title to defend this weekend. Road to WrestleMania at Madison Square Garden. Still, you can grab tickets via Ticketmaster. I mean, let's hypothetically say Brock walks out of Madison Square Garden not the champion. Does Roman get the night off, or does he do an open challenge? What do you think is his advocate?
Well, I was Brock Lesnar's advocate for 20 years. I served as special counsel to the Tribal Chief, the undisputed Universal Heavyweight Champion, the longest reigning Universal Heavyweight Champion, the greatest Universal Heavyweight Champion of all time, Roman Reigns. I also hate dealing in hypotheticals because it harkens back to my father, who was a far smarter man than I'll ever be. My father used to have an expression: if your aunt had balls, she'd be your uncle. She doesn't, so she's not. But I'll give you something more than a hypothetical. It is my plan, it is my strategy, it is my counsel to the Tribal Chief Roman Reigns that we do everything in our power and our influence to make sure that Brock Lesnar does not leave Madison Square Garden this Saturday as the WWE Heavyweight Champion. I don't like the concept of title versus title. I don't like the concept of champion versus champion. I don't like the concept of winner take all, because in my opinion, Roman Reigns is already the end all be all. Roman Reigns is already the one that has taken it all. Roman Reigns is already the champion in WWE, and every other title can fight for being in the number 2 position. So the fact that Brock Lesnar would have to enter WrestleMania as being a former champion that couldn't hold on to his title against the physicality of Roman Reigns, let alone the strategy of his former advocate Paul Heyman, puts Brock Lesnar at such a disadvantage walking into WrestleMania that Roman Reigns' victory at WrestleMania is fait accompli. And that all comes together this Saturday in Madison Square Garden, where I am publicly acknowledging the fact our plan is to ensure Brock Lesnar loses the title in Madison Square Garden.
Ooh, that's some big stuff. And
That's a
again,
massive show before Mania. That's just crazy.
definitely. Again, tickets for Road to WrestleMania, Madison Square Garden, March 5th. You can grab them. They're on sale right now via Ticketmaster. Again, Paul, it is an honor to have you on the show today. We thank you for taking the time out. I will cut the check after this and have it mailed for you coming on, since your time is valuable.
My time is very valuable. You can't afford me. Keep the check. Invest it in your radio station. Go into other cities and take over. So the next time I appear, I am appearing front, and my voice is heard by an even larger audience.
For sure. Again, Paul, honor having you on the show. We'll talk to you soon, man.
Indeed.